Good afternoon on October 11th, 2012. By the time I'm said and done, you're going to know me very well. You're going to know exactly what the dynamics of exactly what happened here. So let's get started. In 2009, number 2. I want to refer specifically to that date range. In 2009, you will know me very well. Everything you need to know. There was a breather from all the help. Now, I didn't know anything about help back then. Let me pick back up again. Exactly where I was in 2009, number 2. Now, I mentioned an individual named Robert McNulty on the Facebook page on the last update. I believe that's 2008 number 2, or those morning updates. 2 of them. Very important right there. That's exactly where it became relevant. And anyhow, to keep right on track, 2009 number 2. This individual, Robert McNulty, if I haven't mentioned, I'm going to repeat it again. Daryl Short's Facebook page, late 2008. And I was relating about career-related substance at times on Facebook. The CEOs in Lake Forest, all of that experience that I gained. And Robert McNulty, what ultimately happened is approximately February, somewhere in that range. I got everything documented to fully substantiate what I'm saying here. In the files. I'm going to share it all. Okay? Let's get back to that. Robert McNulty saw me relating about really high-level, career substance, and he began relating to me napathy and chiropractor. And great. And as the weeks went on in from the beginning of 2009, we got to know each other better in present-day form at that time. And it ultimately came out to be as, hey, that's my background. And I took it, hey, that's of the highest level of professionalism, consistent right with what my background consists of for those 35 years. And ultimately what came out to be is partnering up napathy and chiropractor. I wanted to be understood. That's the way it was presented to me. That's something I would never have to question. I've never had any issue in extending the trust for over 35 years, so I took it. But he started suggesting, hey, why don't we partner up? And it was about March, April, right in that range, 2009. We were talking to each other on the phone, Facebook, and a lot of time, too. Starting to get to be a lot of time. And he said, hey, instead of doing that with what I have explained about the experience I have in business, why don't I know a guy named Barry Eldrod. He lives in Northbrook. He's a millionaire. He's a business professional. He's looking to develop expanding areas in a very lucrative and very good position. Not a position. That business expertise. And I believed it. Fully passed through. Nothing. No reason to have any other. He was telling me the truth, Robert McNulty. It was all based on business professionals in the context of napathy and chiropractor, equivalent to partnering up. And that's his background. I believed him. I believe it was April of 2009. And he said, hey, instead of pursuing that outcome in your career, Barry is looking for someone, and I'll work along with you. And hey, it was great, you know, handshake. And I truly trusted Robert. I had about $70,000 at that time. Now, I took a breather with what is incorporated Norm of Alabama at that time for a bit of time there, about a year and a half by what I can tell right now. About the following year and a half, I will describe to you these following updates. I got to keep these down to 15 minutes because it gets so unstable, this phone. Maybe 20 minutes tops in these future updates. It's very much relative exactly where my career is as of today. Today, right now, where I am. It all started in 2009, right about March or April. Exactly relative to exactly what I just shared with you. At that time, I decided to take a bit of a breather. I continued to do the research, and eventually I came across EQ. That's a little later, okay? Probably more towards 2010. I took Robert's offer, and it was partnering up in that exact type of profession. And at that point, I trusted him. It was April, May. What I can say here is the following: I believe I fully trusted him that was going to be a professional career outcome consistent with my 35 years. I said, hey, give me a hand with some, you know, I could use a hand with some proofreading. And that was, I'm positive this would have been a good, really had the potential. I didn't know anything that I learned later about Robert. Okay, and I have to fully be able to substantiate what I'm sharing with you here. And I can. I believe it was in April. I have exactly the date reference that we partnered up. I trusted him. I put it aside. It was the utmost importance to get that, you know, what I was stating. I didn't know anything about psychological or medical malpractice in any manner. I just put a breather on it. We'll come back to that in 2010, though. Oh, definitely. So Robert, basically, you know, it was, Barry would provide all the resources necessary. It was in professional context to exactly what I've described to you, consistent with past 35 years. Well, I can say I would have to look back on the files that I have. I had about 10,000 of them at that time, in March or April. And it started being like Facebook. And you know, I mean, what really evolved of our agreement, in the coming up days, I started saying, hey, Robert, you know, the resources, let's go for it. It's time to create success. And from that point forward, I'll be able to fully substantiate this. What he gave to help, he wanted to help. Completely professional context, exactly the dynamics I've described. I'm not have to questioning partnering up naturopathy and chiropractor. There was absolutely nothing that prevented that to pass through. Fully extended the trust. And Barry, fully, I don't know how much time had passed from that agreement that we made in April. It was probably more March as the dynamics are set. In the following days, though, we started talking a lot and a lot of relating, and there was a bunch with Facebook. And for what that help was, there was an expectation of, it was regarding the resources. And he came back to me, and it was hours upon hours. Now, I toughed it out. I'm telling you, I have probably a couple of thousand. 2010, I don't know how much there is. It went on as the weeks went on, and I continued to trust him. I really toughed it out. What he was sharing with me, though, was if he gave something, there was a tremendous amount of return in mostly deep-seated personality stuff, really deep-seated personality stuff. It was just the beginning of what would follow for almost 3 to 3.5 years later. For me to describe exactly what I'm sharing, I have to have everything documented, and I do. My files went from 10,000 up to 150,000, just to give you an idea of, I have had some data loss. I don't know how much has been lost, or if I retained every bit of that. What followed in the coming up weeks and months, I'm going to tell you. Anytime he used help, and it was particularly partnering up in career success, I began to realize he was gaining control over me in completely irrelevant substance. Now that took a while. And how long did that take? A year and a half. Went on for a year and a half. I am being thoroughly honest. It was about June, and then it started up again, just ongoing. It was always career success as business professionals. Always is how it would start. All I can say is you look at what I've retained here as far as especially the emails, and it always related in very deep-seated personality issues. I couldn't figure the guy out. I honestly toughed it out because I really did believe it would be that outcome. I really did believe it. For how long? A year and a half. I didn't know anything about triangles being set up. And the Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde, that came later, and I understand exactly what was happening. And since I have documentation to share that, it's very appropriate for me to share that. It's fully that. With what I've described here, the truth is going to absolutely come out. Well, yes, I was pursuing a professional career, at least I understood in our agreement. I have all of the supportive documentation. Always, he was calling me constantly for partnering up or similar context as far as professionals in business. But it was hours upon hours of fighting and blaming and causing it all. Really deep. The resources from Barry must have been 20, 30, 40 hours by the time it was said and done. It was a full 3 years later. It came out again, honestly. How much time do I have here? Okay, I'm going to do these number 3, number 4, number 5 in 2009 because there is a lot there, and I don't know how much time this is going to take. This went on and escalated in the coming up weeks and months, constantly making contact with me to partner up. I expect for him for this to be maneuvers, but eventually the truth will absolutely come out here. You know, there were warning signs from the very beginning. And I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, sue me. I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't know the basis behind that. I overlooked it. Completely overlooked it. I should have heeded that warning. He was calling me to partner up. I overlooked it. And that pattern started to escalate. Another time, restraining order. Completely out of context. But a couple of days went by, a couple of weeks continued on indefinitely. It escalated. By the time it was said and done, there was Gino Combs and Stephanie O'Neill. And this began to be his personality. I couldn't figure him out. I just know it was a continuation of a professional career outcome, which I believe it would have been. It would have been. All I was seeking was proofreading, but it had no resemblance to that. As the months went on, he was always contacting me. It's listed under his resume, all of that. I know I'm fully aware of healthy dynamics. I'm fully aware. I toughed it out. Another time he gave something to me, and it was unbelievable. He started sharing time with me, but the return had nothing to do with that. I toughed it out. He kept presenting me with professional context. I invested $70,000. Actually, monetary was nothing. It was emotional. I was about to learn a lot more. This is what I'm going to share here. This is something I never could believe could happen to me. That was extremely important. And yet I have this guy calling me all the time, partnering up. I'm sure he's not going to admit any of it in present-day form, but eventually throughout the maneuvers, it's going to happen. I'm positive this time, this is going to be included for the truth to come out here. As I've mentioned, I have retained all of the files, everything related to nothing more. By the time it's said and done, I'll leave it up to you whether or not he stalked me. I'm not even going to get into the, it could go on and on and on and on and on. That's exactly what happened. I really did believe it was in context to naturopathy and chiropractor, and for some reason, I had to learn that first and experience it. I will leave the decision up to you as these files are reconstructed. They always end, it's a major, deep personality issue. My Facebook page, well, that took a while. It took probably a year and a half later. I wasn't even able to log in anymore. And it continued for another year and a half in addition to that first year and a half. Now, there were some periods there. It was fault and blame caused Stephanie ganging up on me, talking about banks, getting the banksters back. I mean, crazy. Crazy. It would always be when he contacted me in the exact same context I've described, but the outcome. The warnings, there were not many, but it was for anything that he gave, I was expected to return 10, 20 folds in addition. The resources from Barry, it was very challenging, but then it was partnering up again. He will never admit that. I'm sure he won't. Initially. The truth is going to come out here on this one. It is unheard of to be obsessed about another person or anything in that context. Unheard of. I know all about that. All about that kind of context. And yet what he was describing to me, it took me a while to gain some experience. As I mentioned, it started about March, plus or minus. By April, the end of June, I had 150,000 files out of those 10,000. So let's just take it. I will be fully accountable for me, and he's going to be fully accountable for himself. I don't see any way that I'm going to be forgiving. Was he going for me to file stalking charges? God only knows. I couldn't figure this guy out other than it was in professional context. It escalated considerably. The Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde, and like setting up situations for me to, you know, I began understanding what was going on probably 6 months later. That's how much influence that was misdirected. in a completely different ulterior motive. And I can fully substantiate this. I absolutely believe, I'm saying with what was presented, it all started out exactly in that context, professional. I can fully substantiate all of this is partnering up Napathy, chiropractor, and plus Barry. Absolutely, I can substantiate it. I don't believe there's any way he's going to admit any of it. I believe it's going to be maneuvers, and eventually the truth will come out here. At a certain point, I became hesitant. It probably was, I don't know the exact date range. We've got to look at the files here. July, August. It is, I'm doing the best I can to make them retrievable. There's a ton on Robert. I'm going to tell you, the amount of substance is always ends in some deep-seated personality. I talked it out. I will continue this update on 2009 number 3. I want to keep this short enough. Good. Thank you. Thank you for understanding where I was in 2009. Right there. Exactly what I stated. There's no reason to repeat anything. Yes, I have been pursuing a career as a present date. And I absolutely believe there is a realistic market. It could have been successful. I don't even question that. But certainly it's not utilizing that in relative to what, when I contacted College Lake County and what I've related to many other people to learn. I mean, that's a very valuable experience that I gained. That's never achieved. It failed. I was never able to achieve. You put me back on the show in North Shore, it will be a repeat, though, with that experience in present-day form. I am confident to say that. Thank you. I'm labeling this 2009 number 2. There is no, just to give you an update, there is no 2008 number 3. I decided to make it a morning update as a priority because the truth is going to come out here. I believe it always will. Everything taken into consideration. I want the truth out here no matter what. And I am being honest. Absolutely none of this irrelevant substance or medical in any manner. That's all it is. I will fully disclose the truth. Always. Always. Look at what I got out of it as far as experience. Thank you for letting me share that. I'm ready to go on with 2009 number 3 because there is more substance relative to that exact sector of my life, which is I take very seriously, very important. Thank you.